So we've talked a lot about lead. We're gonna kind of wrap that part of the program up now as we together look at some principles for lead line replacements. So we've done something similar to this on water affordability. There's a on our website and on Water Equals Life Coalition website, you can find an affordability set of principles that a community should take into account, or a state, if they're going to create a water affordability program. We created those with community groups, so we hope we captured the most important things. We see now that there's such a pressure to move forward with lead line replacements that it's a good time to have some principles around how those happen. So we have a lot of expertise in the room today. We're going to go through these principles and get your feedback, and then we're going to go away and take all that feedback, work it into the draft, and then send it back out to you and to others. We've already vetted this with all about water and some other folks, and so we're hoping that you can make it even better. And that way, as we look, the construction season is upon us now, and communities will have money because they were applying for that in the past years to do lead line replacements. So it's a good time for us to get this kind of solidified. So before we dig in too much to that, I just wanted to go back and maybe address a couple of the things that came out of the question and answers. And thank you for all those questions. They were great. I know a few of you didn't get to ask them, and I would love to talk to you more about that because wonderful questions. One of the things that Alexis was talking about and I talked about was door knocking, and that's going to be harder and harder right now. And we want to recognize that. We want, first of all, to be safety first. And there are some things that if we're going to do door knocking, it's important to go with community members, not just be up from outside the community. That could be very bad for several reasons. But also go in numbers. So, for example, with the Flint Community Lab, when they go out to take samples, they never go alone. They are always in teams so that you have multiple people, you know where those folks are. There are people back at the lab that know where they are. Just using some of those logistical things and being very cautious. If it doesn't look like you want to go there, don't go there. Go somewhere else. And also, one of the tools we didn't mention, I think, but is available more to us now is texting. And so a lot of people want to text instead of getting a phone call or even having knock on their door. So there are new tools too that we can be thinking about. So just a word about, really be thoughtful about those outreach techniques to keep everybody safe. And then the other issue was, I said, well, we went to EPA when the city of Benton Harbor wasn't recognizing this lead problem. Well, that's probably not going to be very easy now, right? I get that. So how can we get around that? In some of our states, we have state laws. Michigan actually has a stricter lead and copper rule than EPA's. So in Michigan, I think we'll still have good backup there. In some other states, you're going to have a DEC or an EPA or health departments that are going to back you up. And those are all things particular to that state and that location. So it's a little harder. We're going to have to nuance those things a bit more, but there are still ways to get above or outside of that particular official or that city council or whoever that is. So just a couple of more thoughts on those things. Okay. I don't know if you can read this. I'm sorry, it's small.
It's also in your folder.
It's in your folder, so you can read it on your table. And so at the beginning, I'm going to read through these for all of us who are, I can't see very well. I mean, Marcel There are probably one or two of you that are out there like me. So this document is a set of shared principles developed with hundreds of individuals and organizations who are working to protect their communities from the dangers of lead in drinking water. Water is a human right, and as such needs to be safe, public, and affordable for all. As such, these principles are intended to help communities ensure the safe and expedient transition away from lead drinking water lines without causing further harm in the process. Just a preamble. Yes,
Is there something that says water is a human right? I'd like it to be, but I didn't know that that's actually published in,
we believe water is a human right.
legal.
There are, I mean, some localities have passed resolutions, there are different things like that. No, there is not a right written in the Constitution that water is a human right. But we believe it is a human right, and so we say that. If you need to use these principles and that would be something that would turn people off, you can always take that part out. These are meant to be used in ways that make sense for you. Yes, Jane?
And for a New York State resident, your state constitution says humans have a right to life. It was passed.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, let's have some celebration of that one. That's great. Thank you. Good questions.
Other states in the nation, I believe, Montana and maybe Pennsylvania.
Montana and Pennsylvania. Interesting. Interesting.
Don't put me on the other two.
I would be interested. Now I'm gonna have to go find out because Pennsylvania also is very interested in selling off water systems.
Yeah.
Any other feedback on those, just those few sentences of preamble? Yes.
Well, you should have United.
Yeah, yes.
They're not strong.
That's a great point. She said the UN, the United Nations, recognizes water as a human right, and we could even put a footnote to that effect, which I think would be a smart thing. Great, thank you. All right, so then let's go to the first principle. Funds must be made available by utilities to pay for the private side replacement of any household at or below 200% of federal poverty limit and households who are at high risk and unable to afford replacements. This is our way. We would like to be able to say utilities should pay both sides everywhere for everyone. There isn't enough money. And so we're just trying to find a way to help the people who are in the most need. And so that's why the kind of catchphrase is here. But any thoughts about that? Are we aiming at the right thing here? Is that 200% of poverty level the right trigger? Any thoughts about that?
It's included in replacement. Just lines, is it water heaters, is it?
Great point,
Faucets?
great point. Yeah, is what's included in replacement is the question. And I think under the lead and copper rule improvements is probably what we're talking about. And so it would only be the public and private sides of the line that we've been talking about. It would not be the interior plumbing, the water heater, the faucets, all the things that actually have to be done before you're truly safe from lead. Yes, back there, Alexis.
When you do means testing, often people who qualify don't want to go through the paperwork or have problems going through the paperwork. So I'm wondering if there's some other way of dealing with this, maybe saying census blocks that are under a poverty level or something. So you identify neighborhoods instead of making people go through some kind of bureaucratic loop.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And in fact, in the affordability legislation we're working on in Michigan, one of the things is we want to have automatic qualification and automatic enrollment. And so we should look at whether those two things are possible here, because our state health and human services, whatever those are called in each state, are usually taking care of HEAP and all of the programs. And so they already have the info. So that's a great point. Yeah, making that easier. Other thoughts?
I appreciate the point you just made, making it easier. I like the having to opt out versus having the opting
Yeah.
in, just assume. And then start that way for residents.
Yes, that way you, when a community group goes to the house, you can say you're qualified. Rather than saying this could cost you. Yeah, totally like it. Jeanette?
After
Got a good battery. After, you all's presentation, I was asking Alexis about providing some type of incentive for businesses, like having a sticker on their door. I got the let out, something like that. So if there's Joe and Mary's Coffee Shop and then Starbucks, and Joe and Mary's has a sticker on the door that says that they made the effort to provide safe water for your coffee, or, you know, whatever they're serving, breakfast items, things like that, so maybe. Incentives for businesses to participate and do the right thing, and then, you know, they're like, oh, we donated to the Rotary or something on their door, but so then area businesses too, that would have a sticker or something like that recognizable in the community that, hey, their water in this business, you go there for morning coffee, whatever, they did the right thing to replace their lead pipelines.
Yeah, those are great thoughts. Thank you, Jeanette. Any others on that one? That's all important. Yes,
Like 200% below, I mean, that's so low.
it's, the income would be for those at 200% of the federal poverty level. So twice the federal poverty level, anyone below that. Yeah, because the very federal poverty level is very low. Okay, thank you. Good, good. Partial, we're going to number 2. Partial replacements of lead service lines must be prohibited to protect public health. That is included in the lead and copper rule improvements that were passed. We hope those stick. But we want to have this in here because even if they don't stick, if you replace only the public side, which often happens, and not the private side, it makes that worse. More lead ends up in the home. So we want to make sure there's no situations where it's one side or the other instead of both. Any thoughts on that one? Yes.
Maybe just emphasizing, that just that second part, that it makes it worse.
Yes. So in the communications, make sure we
It's
Point that.
helpful. It's informative and it just helped me learn too, so, but just maybe completing that, just saying, you know, that replacing both because it could make it worse, just having that extra information.
great idea. I think it might be me when I close. All right, excellent point. Yes, Jim?
Okay, so this is a group of very informed people.
Mhm.
I was starting to look at this number 3. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily know that there is the public and then the private home ownership, like the lead laterals.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if this could also be accompanied by just a basic diagram that identifies what part is public, what's private, because then your bullet 2 will make more sense.
Yes, great point. And we have those already, so we'll just make sure they get married. Great point.
Maybe just reference to the water meter. Cause
Reference the water meter, because the private side's on the other side of the water meter.
Although in some places, the water meters are on the outside of the house, so, yep. Always something. All right, excellent. We're moving through now.
And if you could just raise your hand so I can identify people faster, I'm sorry.
Good idea. Okay, number 4, lead pipe replacements must be either copper or polypropylene. Joint materials must be considered lead.
So I think we skipped number 3.
That was me. I put the comment on the wrong spot. Keep going.
Thank you. Okay, moving back up. A community process to secure resident consent must be used before conducting replacements. So this is what we were talking about this morning. where we have to help people consent. They're afraid oftentimes of what that means. And so we want to work with our local partners to do that.
I would add education, so education and consent.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great point. Mhm. Yes,
I loved Alexa's videos to show, you know, the public versus the private, but I always thought when they talked about, you know, the public versus private, that there was something on the street and the private house had to pay for what's going from the street to their house. That doesn't sound to be true then.
from the curb, yep.
From,
Basically from the curb, or there's a junction. There's a junction either at the curb or in the public right away. It's usually called a B box, or it's the shut off where they come and shut your water off. So from that to the center of the street where the main is, that's the public side. From the junction to your home, that's the private side.
but if that was true, then the video that you showed, that would be private on, you know, like there were 2 points that he looked at.
They were,
Right.
they were
They were both
private.
in the house.
Yes, they were looking, just looking from the house as a tool to say whether there's a lead line. It's not 100%. We learned from some of these communities that you can have, if you had a leak in a pipe, they might have put a lead repair in that is not gonna show up in your home. But this is just one tool. They did not show the outside part for sure. And right now, communities are trying in New York and all of the states are trying to get in front of the requirement in the new lead and copper rule improvements that says they have to know where lead pipes are. And so they came out to my house a few months ago and did what's called hydro vacuum. So they come out with a giant truck, has a huge vacuum hose like this, comes up from out of the top of the truck, and they literally vacuum up the dirt, the sand into the truck, and they use water, hydro part, to loosen everything up right above that junction, so they can get down and see what's the pipe on the public side and what's the pipe going to the house. That's kind of the gold standard. And so that isn't happening everywhere. A lot of, when I was living in Jamestown, New York, they just had a BPU stuff, Board of Public Utilities staffer come into my house and say, oh yeah, you're fine, that's galvanized. I'm like, okay, well, galvanized isn't actually fine, but thank you for the information. So yeah, it's a difficult process, and a lot of communities want to say to the homeowner, identify it for us, use the magnet, use the scratch test. And it's a little fraught because you can be wrong. But you can also be wrong even if that is lead or that's not lead and there's lead outside. So it's a pretty complicated process. Yeah.
Jill, real quick, I don't know if it's a question or just being in Flint, they replaced the service lines from the curb to the house.
Yes.
I don't know if that's different or not. Can you explain that if you're knowledgeable about it?
Yes, in that was, so they were doing the private side. Now, I think Flint also had public side ones that were being done at the same time. So it depended on whether, if you were a homeowner, that public side had already been done first. Because a lot of cities have tried to get ahead of this by replacing all of the lines that they own, and they only own to that curb. And so that's unfortunate they did that because they forced more lead in. But if they haven't already done that, then they should do both sides at the same time. Good question, Royce. Thank you. All really good things.
Really quickly, Jill, there was also federal funding coming in for Flint that didn't have some of the same strings attached like we saw with ARPA and EJ and the other. Flint was a special case in itself out of Congress.
Absolutely. Thanks for explaining that, Simone. Yeah, because of the Flint water crisis, the Congress just gave, I think, over $100 million to get that done. But it still took a long time. We were still really learning. We learned a lot from the process in Flint. Benton Harbor got, it was about 30 million. I'll let you say it, sir.
Jill, you know, like, when they do the lines from the streets to the house.
Yep.
That's good, but if they don't go, beyond and into the house, you still gonna have lead in your water. Like in Benton Harbor, one of the things that, we advocated for was them to do both the street and the house. And, what made it so important, well, even today, they only have completed half of the house on the house side. And, we still have lead in the water. So, you can remove the lead pipes from the outside, but if you don't remove the lead pipe from the inside, you're gonna create a problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Absolutely. So it's another nuance. Lead is really complicated. So when you replace those exterior lines, there's never, except if you're in a crisis situation and Congress gives you money, there's never money to do the inside of the home. That doesn't mean that home is safe just because it doesn't have an exterior line that's now not lead. Inside, if the home was that age, it probably also had lead plumbing inside. And then on top of that, fixtures, old faucets tend to have a lot of lead. And as water sits at your fixture, it absorbs that lead. And so that's why we say flush. Because when you flush, then you're taking that big swath of lead, flushing it down the drain, and then allowing water that's cleaner to come in. All of these things are going to be really important educational pieces. And so I think it's such an important point, and we're going to have to, with this, give those other educational pieces at the same time. Because one of the things we recognized as the lead and copper rule improvements were coming closer, I realized we were putting in comments, and one of the things that's not in there is that after your lead lines are replaced, you still have to do corrosion control. It does not say that. So what corrosion control does is stop the lead from being able to leach out of the water. It coats the inside of the pipes and lowers the pH of the water. So when you do that, then you're doing it well. You don't have these big spikes of lead, inside or outside though. If they only replace the exterior lines and don't continue orthophosphate or whatever other corrosion control they have, then people would be at risk because they have interior lead. So in some places, like Benton Harbor, some people were able to get their interior pipes fixed, but not everybody, certainly not everybody. So those are all important educational pieces that we will marry alongside of this to try and help people understand the bigger. But as you can see, it's a lot to explain. But we've been working on it for a number of years, so hopefully we can get it down into something people can digest.
Really quickly too, it's important to monitor our city councils. What we've been seeing in the past, city councils begin to move responsibility for the public space away from themselves. And so they will move the distance that you are now responsible for in replacing the lead service line pipes. And so we have to stay vigilant around that to save cost. They play games with the distance.
Interesting. Thank you, Simone. That's really helpful. That could be a caveat there too. All right, I'm gonna move us then to number 4. I'm on 4, right? All right. Lead pipe replacements must be either copper or polypropylene. And then we go on to say joint materials but must be considered lead-free with less than 0.2% lead. Gets really complicated because it's very difficult to make a joint that will last that doesn't have some lead in it. So we're trying to make that consideration. Residents must be presented with information and options on costs of copper and polypropylene so they are able to choose their preferred materials. Few things around this. Copper is the most expensive. One, it's rigid, so it's harder to plumb. It also has to have sealed joints that aren't just a quick snap thing like they have now in plastic. And it's a material that is very expensive right now. So that's kind of the gold standard, of course, still, and they last longer, by the way. They're still going to last longer. But it looks like if you have to have some plastic, polypropylene has much less chemicals coming out of it than the other ones. PEX is the usual right now, the red and blue in some houses that show you cold and hot. That a lot of toluene and other things comes out of that. So that one we would rather not see in, and we definitely don't want PVC. That should not be allowed. So this one is trying to figure that out in a way that lets residents make a choice and be part of this. But hopefully gets us away from the worst choices.
Yeah, I just wanted a little clarification on that last part of presenting the options to residents. Just because it seems a bit impractical for the utility to procure different types of materials when they have these projects lined up. They're usually gonna do this beforehand. So is the idea for each resident present these options, or is it before developing the program, having some sort of town hall of that sort and agreeing on something as a community?
That's a great point. We should put that up with the part about community process. It really should be done with that community-based organization. It needs to be done prior to procurement. It needs to be done when they're getting permission to do this. Because that's the point at which people have some decision-making power. And it gives the city time to do what they need to do. So, but it's great fun. Yeah, we should put those together. Jill?
I guess I'm just thinking about a dose of reality, which is a lot of these houses that are most affected are older homes. And why plumbers and others like the PEX is because it's flexible.
Right.
Which means as they're going through floors that let's say are no longer
Planed and just, you know, the realities of older homes. So I guess I think it might be difficult to convince people to go with rigid new plumbing. Because plumbers are gonna say, it's gonna really cost you for those kinds of things, where the flexibility of the PEX is going to likely be where people are gonna, you know, recommend. So I don't have an answer, but I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, and so this document isn't so much for the interior, where they would absolutely get to choose, because they're gonna pay probably. On the exterior, though, if they're taking out a straight lead line, they probably should be able to put back a straight copper line.
they should.
And polypropylene would be the better flexible option if they have to go flexible. So you're right, and we could finesse that. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, just on that note of also not using PEX or PVC, I would maybe suggest explicitly writing that, because it is so often the just kind of assumed or material, and you know, it's so dangerous, especially PVC, but also PEX and the chemicals and sometimes volatile organic compounds that they leach. So, and also to your point, they don't last as long. So I think that there's a good argument to just explicitly note that.
Yeah, great idea. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I'm thinking if this is going into a community where the funds are secure for them to do the private and public side, they're not gonna give residents a choice. They're gonna buy what's cost effective for them. I think they're only gonna present these choices if they're requiring the homeowner to pay for the private side replacement.
I agree with you if nobody is advocating that. But I can guarantee you Alexis is not going to allow that to happen in Junction.
That's right.
So that's the usefulness of this tool. We realize that we can't pass something to magically make all these utilities do this. But we're hoping this can be used as a tool so that you can, as a community, decide, we're gonna push on this before they start this process. So that you can proactively have some say, but it's hard, we totally recognize that. Yeah, but great comment, thank you.
Sorry, I had a quick question. So is this suggesting that the homeowner chooses like what's on the public side and the private side? Or is it just on the private side, where they have a choice for both, and do they have to
It would
match?
probably be the private side, because on the public side, that's gonna be a really uphill battle. But if you can control what comes from the curb to your home and then what's in your home, and with what's in your home too, even though it's costly, it's really expensive to change out those pipes, especially in older homes. I had one from 1883, I get it. But they are all eventually gonna need it, so it's not, that's the other thing, is you don't have to do the exterior and the interior at the same time. It would be great if you could. But mostly that's probably not gonna be the case, but then when you need to do replacements going forward, you'll have this education and know, I want it to be what it is coming into my house, and I want that to be the same. I'm comfortable with that. Right now, nobody is talking about this. Nobody tells you when you're building a home or buying a home, what's my water line made of, you know? And so even if this doesn't get fully adopted, it's gonna be a chance for all of us to educate our community members, for now and going forward. But great comments. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that point that like Rochester's doing full lead service line replacements right now with PACS, in case, you know, just what root us in where we are right now.
Well, PACS will reduce the lead.
Increase a couple other things.
Could give you other problems, so that's something you might, and this doesn't help people who can't do this, can't afford to do this. But if you're not under that 200% of poverty level and you're gonna have to pay for your own, you can make that decision, and even if your city is gonna say, we're gonna do it for free, but we're gonna do it with PACS, you can say, no, thank you, it's mine, I'll hire my own plumber. So those are options too. But really, we wanna make sure that at least we can give as many protections as possible to people that wouldn't be. Okay,
One more back here.
okay, we're gonna have to move a little faster.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I think the educational component of all of this is like super important, because how does a homeowner know, oh, what, on the public side, what type of pipe are you putting in and why are you using that versus this? So don't go the cheaper route on my behalf or your behalf. Make sure that the homeowner knows the correct questions, lingo, or legalese, or whatever to ask of the utility company. So it's super, super duper important.
Absolutely, and this would just be one part of a toolkit that Freshwater provides to anyone who wants to use it. You would put your own logos on it and use it from a local perspective and tweak it. So absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Notification, this is number 5. Notification of the replacement project to the homeowner and current resident, so also a tenant, must be conducted through every available outreach method: mail, in-person, phone, online, notice posted on door. When there are water shutoffs, we know that often it will happen with just one of those things. And in some states, it's mandated you have to do all of these things. And we think for something like this, this is really important. You should have to do them all until you reach that homeowner. Okay.
I think you should add, until you reach the homeowner, that might.
Yeah, it was just to add that last part, until you reach the homeowner to that part.
Excellent. Okay. Number 6, utilities must provide educational materials about how families can stay safe before, during, and after lead service line replacements to households receiving replacement and within a block of construction. When lead doesn't just hide in those pipes, and when you shake the ground with big machinery, particulate lead can be jarred loose. And that's the worst kind, because like if you get that up in your water, the aerator and you'll have a lot of lead coming off that little tiny fleck of particulate lead. So we want to make sure people know that they should be using a filter during those times, and they should be cleaning their aerator, because during construction is a dangerous time if you have lead. These materials must be available in plain language and alternative languages that are spoken in that area. Yes.
A block is not a technical term, you should use feet, how many feet.
Okay,
Especially in rural areas, a block might be, 4 miles long.
sure.
We have one over here, Jill, real quick. This.
Sorry.
Hi, yeah, I would suggest adding that it should be the utility or the local government's responsibility to directly distribute filters to every impacted household, because you can't just leave families on their own, you know, to even get that filter. And also, the cities like Denver, Colorado did this really well, where they directly distributed filters to every impacted household and also replacement filters. And so it was coming straight to their door with all of the educational materials in languages, and added all of the components of understanding, you know, using cold water, and best practices. And they saw a really high implementation rate using that strategy. And so I think just making sure that that's the financial responsibility of the city, local government, is really important.
I think we could put that in as we hope. Right now, even when cities have action level exceedances, they usually won't provide that. They won't provide filters to their residents. Would it be, I'm wondering if that's something we could at least say require for people that are under that poverty threshold, and then recommend it for the people above? Because again, we want to protect those people the most. Do you think that would at least move us toward that? And then if you're in a community and you know you can do it, you should make it that. So yeah, good, excellent, thank you.
Recognizing our time, I'm gonna have this be the last one and then we'll move on.
Okay.
I just wondered, a lot of these suggestions and this phrasing, they're already part of the law. So I'm confused about the purpose of it.
The law where?
LCRI, the requirements. We're already required to, I work for utility. We're already required to provide public notice and get a refusal 3 times from an owner or tenant before we move on. So they'll be contacted. We're required to do outreach on a pretty high level, although great suggestions earlier. We're required to do the pitcher filters and offer testing before and after. So how is this different?
The LCRIs may go away.
Well, I know.
That's why we're doing this. I hate to say that out loud and bring it into reality, but I agree with you. Although we also know in practice that some places don't do it. They do some of it, but they don't do all of it. And this is more of a tool to make sure the community can kind of be a watchdog. So this is the tool to compare against. So if you're seeing these lead service line replacements and you've been doing this with your city, and then something isn't happening, they're not getting the pitcher filter, they're not getting the 3 notices. It gives the community leaders something to go with. And so that's the other piece of it. So we're concerned about the LCRI, but we're also concerned about, in some communities, it's just not happening. Yeah, thank you. It's great perspective.
Average 1 minute per question.
Thank you. All right. Moving fast. Okay, I was on number 6. So number 7 is local workforce development and hiring to replace lead service lines must be done from within the community. All professionals should be trained to replace lead pipes with copper and polypropylene now that we want to be able to pick. Any thoughts on that one? Just take one question on this or one comment on this one.
I'll just say for our advocacy in Troy, I would love for this to say whenever practicable, because I would be very disappointed if we were focused exclusively on local contractors. We're currently doing that, and you know, they're doing a pretty good job, but it's a paving company that's doing the lead pipe replacement because that's the best we've got. Obviously, we want to see that workforce development happening in the community and the stuff going through labor councils, building trades association, but yeah, wherever practical, I think would be my suggestion.
Gotcha. And Anna, if you would note, we should have a set of instructions that goes along with this document to remind people that they can make this their own and use things to put in or out, those sorts of suggestions, because that's really important. And in some places, yeah, you want to do that. Excellent. Number 8, the replacement program prioritizes highly burdened and at-risk families. So because money is not freely available, of course, communities are going to focus somewhere. And so we would like them to focus where there are lots of, might be lead paint, as well as lead lines, where there are other environmental burdens in that community, trying to focus efforts on where people are most burdened. Any thoughts about that one? Jill, yeah.
This is simple one.
Yeah.
I would put 8
Following 1.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Good point. Thank you.
The same comment over here. You wanna put
Okay.
it first.
All right, good. All right, number 9, utilities must seek all funding sources available to prevent increases in water rates due to lead service line replacements. Okay.
Give examples?
Oh, sure. So it was easier to give. I'll give examples in the document. Okay. Mhm. We can do that.
Like that includes privatizing, right?
That's a good point. I'm not sure if our language currently does, but we should include, yes, because that is the reason for the comment. We don't want to move people out of affording their water, and we don't want it to be susceptible to purchase. Good. All right. Number 10, utilities must maintain corrosion control treatment following all replacements to ensure safety of homes' internal plumbing. This one is not in the LCRI, unfortunately, and we want to make sure that happens. Yeah.
I think like 10 and 12 being merged.
Into one.
They look the same, don't they?
Ah.
Yeah, thank you. Very similar. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
No, it's indefinitely, basically. There should be like a test out time frame, like you go through 2 of the testing periods or something without any action.
What happens then if you stop the corrosion control and those interior pipes that are still lead continue to corrode? I'm not trying to give you a hard time. Okay, would love to pursue it with you. I truly would. Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that it's written out explicitly that the utilities must report or communicate when they're using control, corrosion control or not, because who knows?
Well,
It should be in their annual report that they should talk about what kind of
Corrosion control they have and how frequently they're checking it. But I think that annual statement is a good place to put it.
yeah, is it required in the consumer confidence report now? Do you know? I thought it was.
Yeah, we tell them we have corrosion control. If you don't have it, I don't know that you make a point to say you
To
don't
say
have
you don't.
it.
Good point. Okay. Yeah, that's great. A great call out. Good. Okay, that was number 11. Oh, no, it wasn't. I'm sorry. Apparently my eyes are really bad. That was number 10. Number 11 is replacements should, when possible, be conducted in coordination with other projects to reduce impacts to residents and to create cost reductions, such as other utility work, road resurfacing, etc. Often not possible to get that, but when you can, it would be good. Lee,
Somehow you wanna make sure that you can't use that as a method of delay,
yeah, good point.
because if I'm gonna resurface a road 2 years from now and lead pipes are there, I can say, you want us to coordinate?
Yeah, so we should make it when possible without creating delay. Nice, I like it. Thank you. Any others? So number 12, I think, is sort of a typo in that, it's the same as number 10 for all intents and purposes, so we'll merge those.
And this is in general, we've only heard the word renter once, thank you for that. But it's really not clear about everything about homeowner, because certainly in Rochester, most of these homes are occupied by renters, not owners, and it's really not clear what the role of the renter should be, and the community should be really clear about that. Can the renter say it? Do they have to go to the owner? Can the owner deny it? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, and I think we will try to give guidance on that, but I also think it's gonna depend on the state. And so we'll try to give state by state guidance on how that has to be treated, because there are different rules for like tenants.
Just noted on. this
Yes, we
general
will.
doc.
Yes, thank you.
What, is it okay that it says resident and versus renter? Just seeing as some people be. paying rent.
I don't know the legality of.
That's just why we included as
That's
resident in
all.
here. I can make a note for renter though.
This isn't that, we're gonna.
Yep.
Redo this and send it back, so you can see if it works after we redo it. So thank you. Yes, Joe?
So just a little organizational suggestion here.
Sure, yes.
Because people are often lazy readers. That perhaps if you have a section that is more like tenants, homeowners versus utilities versus, the actual process of replacing pipes. Because people might just hone in on the section that they see most relevant. Hopefully they'll read it all, but.
No, great point. I think that would be beautiful. Yeah.
How much time? We have time for one more?
Jim? Yes, one more.
I would add a section saying privatization of the utility is not a way to solve this.
Yeah.
Where'd it go?
It's a great point, and we will try to work on how you could get that in there. We are also coming up with privatization prevention tool. Because it is a big problem, and in every case we know of, the cost has gone up after privatization. I don't know of a single case where it's. All right. That was a lot of brain work, and I am so thankful that you got through that with us. It's so important to get your feedback. It was really helpful. We would love more feedback. If you think of something after, email us. We're happy to hear it. So let's give ourselves a great big hand.